Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Okay, so today we're doing something very, very interesting. Okay, this is the first part of a series which is going to be about refuting kind of Darwinian evolution. So before I go into it, this first part's just going to be about what evolution is. So this one, so part one, about what is evolution. Because before I can refute it and tell you guys, or anyone who's listening, what's wrong with it, we first have to know what it is. Okay, so this first part will be about this. Now, before we start, it's important to realise that what am I doing here and what is this series going to be about? In science, now they don't really teach this in school, which I think is quite an issue, but in science there's something called the philosophy of science. So there's a philosophy behind science. All this means is the philosophy of science means how science works. That's all it means. How science works. So how do we know what we know in science and how do we know it to be true and things like that? Now, evolution, okay? Now, when I talk about evolution here, okay, I talk about the evolution of Darwin's evolution, okay? Evolution can have many meanings, and in the philosophy of science, this can be a problem of determining what things mean. But when I talk about evolution here, okay, remember I'm specifically referring to Darwinian evolution, which is the fact that humans and all life forms evolved over time from a single being, okay? Which this evolution I'm talking about is the one which rejects creationism, yeah? Which is the belief that Allah Azza wa Jalla, God, created Adam and Eve, okay? And they are the founders of our world, okay? Just thought I'd clarify that. Now, evolution, okay, before I start, I admit, as all people of academic honesty should, that evolution is a valid scientific theory, okay? What that means is, someone can say that I know scientists don't like using the word believe. I affirm that it's a theory, which means you can say that evolution is a theory. It's something which possibly could have existed. That's absolutely fine. However, the reason why I'm doing this series and why I think a lot of Muslims are actually picking up on it is because people seem to be saying that evolution is a fact, okay, or the truth, yeah. So it's a fact or definitely true. So when we talk about true here, talk about definite truth, okay? When actually it's really not, because there are actually some problems with the theory, okay, which a lot of secular scientists actually had a problem with, okay? And hopefully what I'll try to do is, as we go along, I'll try to quote some of these scientists who are secular and have no religious tendencies at all. So it's not like they're rejecting evolution because they believe in a religion, but they're rejecting it because it's got problems with the theory itself. Okay, so just to clarify, evolution is a valid scientific theory. The problem which I'm dealing with here is it's not a fact. Yeah, it's not absolute truth. Yeah, because there are certain problems with it. Right, in interest of not making this absolutely massively long, let's get into it. Okay, so I've told you what evolution is and what we're kind of talking about, but let's define it. So one of the main definitions you can say that evolution is the process by which different kinds of living organisms are believed to have developed from earlier life forms. Okay? Process by which different kinds of living organisms are believed to have developed from earlier life forms. Yeah. So all the organisms which we see today are developments of older ones. Yeah, and that includes human beings. Okay. So these human beings weren't human beings always. Yeah, they've evolved from something different before, and through that theory, you get the rejection. This is why this rejects creationism. Yeah, rejects the idea that Allah or God created Adam and Eve at the beginning. Okay? Right. So, okay. Now, we all probably know, whoever studied this in school, that the main proponent, the founder almost, if you want to put it, of this theory, yeah, was uh, Darwin, yeah, Charles Darwin. Now, it's changed since Darwin's time, okay? It's not exactly the same as what he wrote and what he theorized in his book, The Origin of Species, okay? It's not the same as what's in this book. So what I'm going to do is, in this first part, I'm going to talk about what Darwin said, because the theory which we have today, most of it, obviously, it comes from Darwin. So we'll talk about what Darwin said, and then next episode, the next part, we'll talk about what the current theory is, building on today, and then we'll go into a few refutations of it. So what did Darwin say? So Darwin said the following, okay? He said that changes took place, evolution took place through two main mechanisms, okay? One is still relevant today, the other isn't. So I'm going to deal with the irrelevant one first, and then we'll look into the relevant one, and that will be today's episode. So, number one was something called natural selection. And number two was the passing on of acquired characteristics. Okay, natural selection is still valid today. This one isn't. So let's talk about this one first. Okay, let's do this in blue now. Blue is a nice colour. Okay, so passing on acquired characteristics. So this is not part of the theory today, because in the study of genetics, which we have Gregor Mendel to thank for it, yeah, this is shown not to be true. And let me give you an example of why it isn't. So, for example, the reason why this wasn't true is because of a theory which was disproven, which worked through this. So Lamarck, no, I've absolutely butchered that spelling. No, I'm not butchered it too bad, 1 second. So Lamarck's theory, okay? Lamarck's theory was that an animal, okay, or, yeah, any animal, okay? So let's, for example, the best example was the giraffe, okay? So let's use the example of the giraffe. Lamarck's theory said that giraffe have long necks, okay? Because we observed that giraffes have long necks. Lamarck said the way how giraffes have long necks is, originally, giraffes had small necks, okay? And he said everything was dandy, everything was really cool and nice, and giraffes had small necks because all the leaves were low down. Because leaves were low down, yeah? So if the leaves were low down and not very high, why would you need a long neck, right? And then Lamarck says, after this happened, yeah, the trees started to grow. So then, trees grew. Now, because the trees grew, okay, obviously the leaves were higher. And so the giraffes now had to reach, yeah, and had to really struggle to get their food. So it says then, the next stage is that because leaves were higher, giraffes had to stretch their necks. Had to stretch their necks. And because they had to stretch their necks to try and reach it, the higher leaves, the giraffes evolved to grow longer necks. And so therefore, giraffes grew longer necks. Okay? And this is the part which genetics now knows is completely untrue. And it says, therefore, or then, they passed this down. So the long giraffes passed it down to the next generation. Okay? We know that is not true. You cannot pass down in genetics, anyone who studied genetics, You cannot pass down acquired characteristics. Okay? For example, okay, if through my life, yeah, I want to be a cricketer, okay, and so I start to work on my throwing, yeah, to throw at the wicket, and I practice and I practice and I practice, and the muscles in my arm get bigger and stronger, okay, and I get to throw even more, yeah, and I throw even better and faster, okay. If I have a child, that throwing of the ball better in cricket was acquired. Yeah, I built it up over time. My child, my son or daughter, is not born now with strong muscles who can then throw the cricket ball really well. That's not how genetics works. Yeah, so genetics said, and this is something which Darwin actually bought into as well. They said that this, or less more specifically, yeah, they talked about Lamarck's theory was incorrect. They said they rejected it. Geneticists today reject Lamarck's theory. Yeah, it's incorrect. So how do modern scientists get around this? We'll come to that next part. But that's basically just what Lamarck's theory is. Actually, what I'll do is to make this more bite-sized. I see it's 11 minutes. So what I'll do is in part 2 we'll talk about natural selection. Okay. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.